Hi, Jamie.
Hey Sean,
Thank you so much for being on SAA Storytellers and sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
absolute pleasure and always love connecting with SAA and the community.
Your story was so great. It was a wonderful story of connection, and you never know who's going to have AS, and it can pop up in the most surprising places. So thanks. We haven't had a story like that, so thanks for doing that.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
I also wanted to start our chat a little bit with your early signs of AS. You had a lot going on and went through a lot, and I think our viewers and listeners would like to learn more.
So I started having symptoms of quote unquote autoimmunity from really early childhood. Gastrointestinal symptoms, psoriasis, issues with my feet, and none of those were picked up as autoimmune. And that kind of went on until when I was 14, I started getting some more serious issues with both my bowels and pain in what I thought was my hip. And then eventually, after another 4 years of searching and dealing with loopholes and trying to jump through hoops, and eventually pushed to get a diagnosis when I was 18.
And you talked about your toes in the past, and how your feet. You've had quite a ride with your feet, right?
Yeah, so one of the symptoms that can go with axial spondyloarthritis is psoriasis of the toenails. And it's one of those things where AS and other autoimmune diseases can be invisible, and that can sometimes make them even more challenging. But then also, sometimes it can make it visible. And psoriasis or nail psoriasis is an example of that, where even now, things are in a very good place with the symptoms overall. But when I look at my toenails, it's a bit of a stark reminder, and not um, not something that I wish people to see unless they can deal with very extraterrestrial looking toes.
And I think you had said to me earlier that there was some self confidence issues with your feet. If that you've been dealing with in your life. So that's something to that you have to hide or talk about, or I mean, you
Yeah,
can't run from it, right? I mean, yeah.
it's funny. I went for a massage in I was in Morocco and I was on a surf trip, and I went for a massage, and halfway through she just stopped. She looked at my toenails and started tutting, and then decided to give me a pedicure for the rest remainder of the.
Oh,
And I've got to say, whatever she did to them, it did try. They did look really good for about a week afterwards. Some the overall psoriatic arthritis look of them was massively improved. So maybe that's the trick.
so this is a really good lead into some of your other hobbies because you said this you were on a trip, a surfing trip or something like that. So I know you have a lot of extreme sports love. You want to share a little bit about your other hobbies with sports?
Yeah. So I started skateboarding when I was about 9, and never really stopped. It was a huge passion, and took it pretty seriously when I was in my younger years. AS and the diagnosis of AS and Crohn's kind of put that to a bit of a stop. And for years, I couldn't really skate. And as I mentioned in the story just now, finding a level of hope where I thought, okay, it might be possible to get back to these hobbies that I love. And once I started being able to skateboard again, I became increasingly excited about other extreme sports, mostly board sports. So got into snowboarding, and I'm still very much a beginner, I'd say, and same with surfing. So there is a transferable skill between skateboarding and other board sports, but I'm still definitely a beginner, and that's a lot of fun.
And I think you'd mentioned that surfing you were excited about because the water is very healing for AS and stuff like that. So you were excited to learn more about surfing.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a little bit less urban than skateboarding a little bit more longevity, and hopefully I can skate for the rest of my life. But I think surfing's a good insurance as well. I know people surf, well into their later years for sure.
Awesome. You also had shared with me that you like comedy shows and music shows. Do you visit a lot of those, like around Europe and UK?
Yeah, for sure. I actually had a stint of doing stand up comedy a few years back, and actually going and doing open mics, and that was terrifying. And the good
It's humbling. It's humbling, isn't it?
it's definitely humbling, and teaches you that some days you can do the same thing and it go amazingly, and other days you can do the same thing and it go terribly. Which is kind of like what it's like living with a chronic health condition. Like you can show up in the same way, but
Mhm.
sometimes
Yeah,
things feel different. But I'm a musician, and comedy really helped me to get more comfortable being on stage as well. So maybe I'll revisit comedy at some point, but it was a good experience in the past tense. But now I'm going to keep it
absolutely. I've only dipped my toe in it a little bit, and it was terrifying.
there.
So yeah. All right. So thank you for that. So moving on to the last bit. Tell me about Yoga for AS.
Yeah. So essentially, if you're looking for an online community that's kind of global, really, at this point, where you can connect with others living with AS and other related forms of inflammatory arthritis, but mostly AS, and learn how to not only do yoga but also strength training and learn movement practices, practices for deep relaxation, stress reduction, and do so in like a safe and connected community. That's really what it's all about. So you can really find out more on yogafreyes.com, but also feel free to connect with me on my socials at Jamie Boder and also at Yoga Freyes.
Perfect. I'll put a link in the chat to Yoga for AS. We work with you at SAA, and we have a landing page that folks can come in that way if they find it easier to come in through SAA or they're already on the SAA site. Jamie, thank you so much for telling your story and sharing your time and talent with us and all the good work you do in the yoga community. It's a pleasure to know you, and thank you for being on SAA Storytellers.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks to everyone watching.